I've been thinking about this for a while, but you're just not needed in this company. I couldn't say it when I first arrived because it was too soon, but it's obvious by looking at you. You're incompetent," said the newly appointed department head, who had taken issue with my blonde hair from the start, eventually driving me to resignation. A year had passed since then, and one day I found myself wearing a suit and visiting the company for the first time in a long while. As I entered the lobby, I ran into the department head, who approached me with a mocking tone and said, "What's the rush?" "Got an interview now," as I responded, her face turned pale. My name is Tyler Johnson, a 25-year-old working at a company that develops some of the most popular video games in the country. It's been 5 years since I joined the company, but I've had virtually no personal interaction with my colleagues. I've always been bad at socializing. I've spent most of my time facing video games with no friends other than a childhood buddy, Kevin, who lived nearby. My parents are often busy and rarely home, so I didn't have many chances to talk with them, which made me quite reticent. I never really knew how to start or hold a conversation, so I naturally spoke less and less. Was there anything new this week? Not really, just the usual don't you feel lonely looking back, the feeling of returning to a quiet house with my parents' absence and feeling suffocated, thinking something was missing, might have been loneliness. However, I didn't realize at the time that it was the loneliness I was feeling. The quiet house, warming up pre-made meals in the microwave, making instant noodles with boiling water, and the echo of my own sounds were normal for me. Though my classmates sometimes pitied me, I never felt particularly unhappy with my life. I didn't struggle financially, and despite the limited time we spent together, my parents deeply loved me. They were concerned about my lack of social interaction and asked Kevin to play with me. Kevin often invited me over to play video games together. I've gotten quite good, but I still can't beat you, Tyler. Do you have any tricks? I've just been doing this a lot. Someday I'll beat you, just you wait. Kevin's family was also kind to me, and their house was always lively and cheerful. He never pitied me, knowing that sure, you might not have everything and there might be some inconveniences, but with parents who care about you so much and being able to play your favorite games, you can't possibly be unhappy. You're not bothered by this life, so it's wrong for outsiders to pity you and make a fuss. Why should you listen to and be hurt by the words of someone without that decency? When I was troubled by being pitied by classmates, his words were a strong rebuff. I once asked him why he kept playing with someone like me, who wasn't even fun to talk to. Why? There's only one reason. I play with you because I want to, and because I've decided I will beat you accepting me for who I am, not much of a talker, and always smiling. Playing video games with Kevin was the happiest time for me. I didn't fit in at school, and Kevin was my only real buddy. I haven't made any other gaming friends, and of course I haven't fit in at this company either. Beyond my lack of communication skills, there's also the issue of my appearance. Since graduating high school, I have short dyed blonde hair and a tattoo on my leg. My flashy appearance and unsociable demeanor kept people away, leaving my surroundings as quiet as ever. I got the tattoo right after graduating high school. It was a promise to myself to stay true to who I am, not ashamed, but Kevin, who taught me the importance of being myself. All my fond memories are associated with gaming. In games, I could be a hero, a village chief, or a racer traveling through various worlds without leaving my home. I love gaming and have dreams I want to fulfill, so I've always believed this job is perfect for me. Even though I don't chat much, I could tell that my coworkers relied on me. They never pried too much into my personal life. It seemed like they could tell I wasn't the type to care about appearances, but they understood it was a topic I didn't want to delve into, so they were kind enough not to cross that line. Today, a new department head starts. She was headhunted by the CEO himself, rumored to be a very capable woman. Everyone was buzzing with excitement, wondering what kind of projects she'd bring and what her work style would be like. Nice to meet you, I'm Sarah. At my previous company, I worked on developing this game. Let's all work together to develop great games, she introduced herself while pulling out the most popular game from a rival company. I was happy to work with someone who had developed a game I'd played and liked so much. She spoke clearly, her voice filled with confidence, backed by her experience, and her straightforward personality, coupled with her beauty, quickly made her the most popular person in the office. She was direct with her words, which some found off-putting, but I didn't particularly mind. She criticized when necessary and praised when due, and although her manner could be harsh, her points were valid. However, my relationship with her gradually soured. She seemed to think my silence and focus on work didn't fit the office atmosphere and called me out on it. Could you try to greet people more cheerfully in the morning? It started with such gentle suggestions, but my appearance and minimal conversation, not lavishing her with praise, seemed to irritate her, and she began to look at me with disdain. When a writer wanted to feature our company, she even asked me to take the day off, saying I'd lower the company's image. Despite this, I continued to work hard and, instead of opposing her, simply didn't cater to her. One day she called me in when she was in a worse mood than usual, the worst I'd seen. "I've been thinking, but you're just not needed at this company. I couldn't say it when I first arrived, but it's clear from your appearance that you're incompetent." I'm sorry, she indirectly pushed me towards resignation, snorting and looking at me with pity. It was a look I'd become all too familiar with. It reminded me of people pitying me for having parents who were rarely home. I don't hate people. They've created many useful and interesting things like games and medicine. But I don't like talking to them. They make assumptions and impose their righteousness on others. Who decided blonde hair means incompetence? I thought I was sincere in my work. Can't they see that? Being judged as incompetent now overlapped with the feelings of being judged unhappy as a child, and it felt like something inside me was about to break. I couldn't help but long for the presence of Kevin, who understood me. Suddenly, a promise from the past came back to me. "Let's make the best game in the US someday," promised that voice finally showed me where I stood. There's no need to be hurt by the words of those without decency. I don't need this person's recognition, I just need to fulfill my promise with him. I left the company without saying anything. A year had passed and I was in a suit, visiting the company for the first time in a while. Then, in the lobby, I ran into the department head, who approached me with a mocking tone. "What's the rush?" Got an interview now, I thought to myself how unchanged she was. With a mocking expression, I wonder what face she'll make when she finds out what's about to happen. It's good she hasn't changed. That makes it all the more satisfying to prove her wrong. I no longer understood why I was so hurt by her words. By not being accepted, it is impossible to try to understand everyone. I had learned that painfully as a child. Kevin was frail and hardly ever came to school. On the rare occasions he felt well enough to attend with me, there were always those who insensitively suggested he was just skipping school. I knew we would never understand them. How could they mock him for finding the courage to come to school? Why couldn't they consider that people who can come to school every day have their reasons? Why do they insist on imposing their own lifestyles and values as the norm on others? Everyone grows up in different environments. There's no such thing as normal. Values can't be narrowed down to just one. Why do people forget that not everyone can conform to the crowd? As I grew older, I realized that human nature doesn't change easily. It's hard to understand everyone, so we have to find a compromise somewhere. I set some rules for myself not to let my efficiency drop even when dealing with people I disliked, to only interact with others through work, not to pry into anyone's personal matters for fun, and to dedicate everything to fulfilling the promise with Kevin by any means necessary. I came to see the CEO. "Did you come to grovel because you couldn't find a job even a year after resigning?" The department head, clearly still disliking me, taunted me, determined to prove her wrong. I revealed something only the CEO and a few others knew, confident she would find out soon enough. "I've bought this company then." Showing her my smartphone, I explained I developed this game, referring to the current #1 most downloaded and extremely popular game. She was speechless with surprise. I had the idea while I was still working here, but since I was told to leave, her face went pale and she collapsed to her knees. I never intended to cling to the company, but I was determined never to give up on game development. I still hadn't fulfilled a promise to Kevin. Well, he's no longer with us, I continued calmly. From the day I decided to focus on what I could do for Kevin rather than mourning his absence, I never cried again. So, after consulting with the CEO, I ended up buying the company. You're aware of the company's dire financial situation, right? Indeed. After I left, the company struggled with game development and was continuously in the red. The CEO acknowledged the significant contributions I had made and offered me an apology. Though I could have ignored the situation, I felt indebted to the company for employing me for 5 years without prejudice against my appearance, and I also wanted to get back at the department head. She dragged me to the CEO's office. "Why would you let this man buy the company? Even if he has a talent for game development, with that appearance, how can he be a CEO?" The CEO, smiling and glancing at me for a moment, said, "Why do you think so?" His look might be unconventional for a businessman, but it represents his roots and determination. You know too little about him. Isn't it wrong to judge and speak ill of someone you don't know well? The CEO then shared the story of me and Kevin with her. I finally understood why the CEO looked at me briefly. It was a sign of caution, knowing the topic was painful for me. Kevin had been sickly since childhood, spending much time in the hospital or at home playing games. Whenever I could, I'd play games, and there were few who could match my skills. Kevin was one of them, and I loved playing games with him. After school, I'd rush to his place to play games together. We became so good at most games that we eventually started developing our own. The two of you seemed genuinely happy, creating games and starting to dream. Two individuals not particularly good at socializing on their own became the best team together. One was a frail child who didn't fit in well with others, and the other was a child who lacked family time and didn't know how to communicate. Both knew well how to play alone and understood the joys of solitude. Yet, that didn't mean they were never lonely. A child too weak to even dream and another afraid of getting hurt by seeking more than the status quo could dream together. As adults, we promised to create the best game in the US, and all of us adults believed without a doubt that these two could achieve it. However, fate can be cruel, and Kevin worsened and passed away in high school. Johnson was so devastated it was unbearable to watch. He stopped eating, and his health declined as he blamed himself for not noticing sooner. Despite wanting to do something for him, we lost touch for a few years, but then he suddenly appeared for a job interview looking just as he did before. His hair dyed the same golden color as Kevin, and a tattoo on his leg with the face of a man resembling Kevin. And then Johnson said, "I will create the best game in the US," continuing Kevin's will. Having his image tattooed on me is almost the same as fulfilling our dream together. He always remembered Kevin and their promise through his appearance. By the way, Kevin was my son, the CEO, looking distant, whispered this last part. "No wonder you spoke as if you'd been watching over me all this time." Regret was evident in the CEO's voice. Even when Kevin died, the CEO lamented, "If only I had paid more attention, if only I had spent more time with him, if only I had noticed the signs sooner." We all bear guilt and regret when we lose someone important, but Kevin taught me that our time together wasn't wasted. Knowing his end was near, he left me a letter. "Don't blame yourself or waste away after I'm gone. I'm not going to ask you to live for both of us, but please live out your full life happily. You once asked why I enjoyed playing with you. You were my salvation. Even though I couldn't go outside, I was able to travel the world and become a racer and an athlete through games. I never beat you, but the world of gaming was my salvation, and playing with you was always fun. You never pitied me for being sickly and never forced me outside. To me, you were a hero, and gaming was my world. Your games will surely be someone else's salvation, so don't give up on your dreams. I love seeing you happy and don't want you to be sad forever looking forward. I never considered my life unhappy or regretted meeting you." Don't turn our meeting into something sad. When I received the letter from Kevin's mother, I broke down, yet life goes on. I couldn't remain in sorrow forever. Time is precious, and every second counts towards making America's #1 game. With Kevin's words in my heart, I decided to move forward. She seemed at a loss for words, standing there dumbfounded. The next day, upon coming to work, she started to acknowledge her mistakes to me and the CEO, beginning to share her past. I was thinking all the way home yesterday about a subordinate I lost at my previous job. They really looked up to me, and I thought of them as very dear to me. They were a serious and quiet subordinate. I thought I was caring for them in my own way, but one day they suddenly ended their own life. A quiet person like them wasn't someone who could easily share their work troubles. That's why I should have paid even more attention to them. I was tormented by my own helplessness for not being able to notice. They had told me the day before that they wanted to talk, but I couldn't make time for them. Being blamed by others for not noticing the signs, I started to feel more and more responsible and couldn't fit in with the atmosphere at work anymore. I became so disengaged that the current company's CEO approached me. At first, I declined, but I was drawn to the words that I was needed and decided to change jobs. I was looking for a place where I could be accepted. That's when I met Johnson. He dressed inappropriately for a professional, seemed to avoid actively engaging with people, and appeared to be just getting by. Though the quiet and diligent subordinate was no longer there, Johnson was still working unaffectedly, and I found myself unfairly harsh towards him out of frustration. I am truly sorry, it was just misdirected anger. I was venting my frustration on a complete stranger. I had completely forgotten that everyone has their own circumstances and reasons for their actions. Knowing that Johnson had overcome his own difficult past and was living for the sake of someone who had passed away made me realize I needed to be that kind of person too, otherwise I couldn't truly honor my former subordinate's memory. I'm glad my feelings got through. Originally, I was attracted to Sarah's skills and had thought about headhunting her, but then I heard she was struggling after losing a subordinate and couldn't focus on anything. I thought meeting Johnson might give Sarah some realization, so I went ahead with the headhunting. I had hoped from the start they could become good partners, having come to understand her past. I now feel we can be good partners. Perhaps being people who have both experienced similar pain, there are things we can understand about each other. Your skills are needed in this company. Let's develop America's #1 game together, saving as many people as we can. The department head and I, now understanding each other better, work diligently every day, leveraging their strengths to create better games.